أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. I welcome you all to this guest lecture on artificial intelligence and overview. My name is Junaid Kader and I am affiliated with the Qatar University and also the Information Technology University. I'm very happy to talk to this class from HBKU and to the students of the course on studying ethics of artificial intelligence. I'm very thankful to Dr. Ghali for this invitation. Let me start by giving you an outline of the roadmap, the plan for this lecture. This lecture is going to be composed of 4 parts. The first part is a broad high-level introduction to what is AI. Then I will talk about the early history of AI and knowledge-based systems, because to understand AI, it's important to see the historical evolution of AI, how it started and which phases it has been through, and what is the current state of the art. Then we will talk about modern AI and data-driven methods. We will talk about how in the recent couple of decades we have made many advances, and these advances have opened up many possibilities, and while they have created many opportunities, they also have various pitfalls, and we review them in the 4th part of today's lecture. So let me start initially by talking very briefly about myself. I am affiliated with both Qatar University and Information Technology University. I work in the areas of ICTD, machine learning, AI ethics, and the security of machine learning. Some of my current research areas are shown. The ones that are particularly relevant to this lecture are ethics of AI, safety of AI, robustness of AI. As we use AI in more and more critical field, we have to ensure that the technology is ready for deployment in a human society and it does not harm some segments of the society. We are also interested in creating technology that is secure, robust, ethical, and in this regard, we have been doing some work. We have got some research funding on this. I, along with my co-PI, we got a fund from Facebook Research Ethics in AI, and we won this for an award for the Asia Pacific region, and our research has been covered in various news sources. Moving ahead, let us start by talking about what is artificial intelligence. So this is the first part. The main idea here is that even though artificial intelligence is a recent phenomenon, people have always been interested in creating machines that assist human beings that appear clever. As an example, Al-Jazari, he created an elephant clock, which was a mechanical contraption. It was a mechanical device which made use of various gears and pulleys and ideas from physics and mechanics. And through it, he was able to create a clock which would work in a very elaborate fashion. It would be useful for keeping time, but at the same time, it was a real spectacle to see how the various parts of this machine worked. Al-Jazari and other Muslim scientists, including Banu Musa, they were also famous for creating many other clever, intelligent machines, but those machines were mostly called automatons. They appeared to be showing intelligent behavior, automatic behavior. However, they did not really embed any intelligence, because at that time we did not have the technology of electronics and digital computers. So everything that was built using mechanical stuff, and therefore the technology then was relatively primitive. Al-Jazari also, on the advice of the ruler at that time, he wrote a book, the Book of Knowledge of Ingenious Mechanical Devices, which has now been translated into English as well. So this was, he also wrote a book, Al-Jami'u Bayn al-Ilmi wal-Amal al-Nafi fi Sana'at al-Hiyal. So the idea was that you would construct mechanical machines, which is going to do some useful work for you. And even before this, even Aristotle talks of making use of machines to solve human problems and to replace the jobs that usually slaves were doing. If we look at the pyramids in Egypt, we see that those were marvelous constructions, and it is hard to perceive how those artifacts were created without actually using any heavy machinery. So at that time, people made use of human labor, slave labor, and the interest in building robots was partly to replace these the human use of slaves, and to use electronic or mechanical intelligence instead. Moving ahead, the modern AI, it focuses on building intelligent machines. So contrast this with the thing we saw on the last slide. We were talking then of only clever machines, things that could act interestingly. They were also useful in an engineering sense, but modern AI, it tries to emulate the intelligence that we find in various organisms, including human beings. So one signature of this intelligence is that such an agent is a person or some entity that is able to do something. So an intelligent agent, whether it is software or if it's a combination of software and hardware, we define it as a system that perceives its environment and it takes action that maximizes its chance of success. This is a definition that is provided in the famous book on AI, written by Stuart Russell and Peter Norvig. The authors also use this figure to illustrate how it is necessary that intelligence must have components for both sensing the environment, perceiving the environment, and also affecting the environment. So at least two things are important. You must be able to see, feel, and hear the environment. Machines make use of sensors for this. And the machine should also be able to affect the environment. And for this, the machines typically, they make use of actuators. So we can distinguish between two kinds of intelligence. One intelligence is the normal intelligence that we find by the use of algorithms and software. This is more common these days on the internet. When we go onto some site and we are offered recommendations, or we are given some services, personalized, context-aware services, those are software-based services. However, if we have an embodiment of AI, then you would see a robot. A robot is AI with a body. And similarly, the robot would have some sensors through which it can feel, sense, see, you have all kinds of sensors, and through which the robot is able to perceive what exists out there, and it is able to make a model of the outside world. And it also has a physical body which has various end effectors. For example, in the robot shown, you see that the robot has two arms, two legs. The robot can be programmed to grasp and manipulate things with his hands and arms. And at the same time, the robot can use legs. The robot may also have wheels, and through it, the robot can do locomotion. It can change its location. It can go to some other place. And these are the things we typically associate with intelligent beings. We associate, first of all, life, signs of motion, moving around, the ability to see, the ability to make sense of other modalities such as speech, the ability to use language, because language is a key ingredient that separates human beings, which is the highest source of intelligence that we see on this planet, and other lower forms of intelligence. Even very simple animals like dogs, cats, they have very impressive ability to move about. They have these motor skills. They have senses as well through which they can perceive the environment. So the idea is that with these AI, you may be interested in building embodied robots, things that have bodies that interact with the outside world, or you may be simply interested in creating a software agent that acts intelligently. It it makes use of algorithms to provide you services. So in terms of a robot, we see that a robot, it must have at least these components. It must have a body. For something to be a robot, it has to have a body. It must have some way of providing energy to its various components. It must have sensors. As an example, it may have a touch sensor. It may have a sensor that measures some physical quantity such as light or temperature. It may have distance sensors through which it is able to detect how far something is. The robot may also have more complex sensors such as a vision sensor. It may make use of a stereo camera. It may have two cameras through which, using technology such as the one used by the humans, we have two eyes. In a similar fashion, a robot can be given a vision system through which it can initially get information in the form of pixels, and then making use of various algorithms from various sciences, we can try to recognize objects. We can see what things are moving. We can do various things that human beings, they do automatically. Then a robot must also have a brain through which it is given the power to think. This is typically in modern times implemented through electronics and a digital computer. You may make use of a microcontroller or some embedded computer. And on the computer, you would take in the information that is provided by the sensors. You would process it to determine how to act. And by completing this loop between sensor, the brain, and the actuators, you can complete the loop and show intelligent behavior. So moving ahead, now let us see at what are the inspirations of artificial intelligence. So for a long time, people have been fascinated by how intelligent human beings are, and can we create machines that look like human beings, that move around like human beings, that speak like human beings, that can interact with human beings. And this is the inspiration for creating these humanoid robots. These humanoid robots, they take an anthropomorphic form. That is, they look like a human being. They would have a head, a torso, two arms, two legs, and then algorithms are created to stabilize the system, to make it move around, to act intelligently, and technology has been advancing over time. However, many of the things that we find very simple, like Even a 3-year-old child can easily grasp things. They can pour water from one cup to another. They can open doors very easily. Such things are very difficult for robots. However, many of the things that humans find very difficult, such as making long mathematical calculations, doing computation again and again, doing something, some algorithm from morning till night, many of the things that we find difficult, and doing all of this at a very rapid pace, we find it difficult, but robots find these tasks to be very easy. So the logical sort of things, the robots and AI, they manage it very well. However, things that we associate with the motor skills, moving our arms, grasping things, understanding language, writing poetry, being creative. These are the things that are typically we associate with humans rather than AI. So one thing that we see here is that the inspiration comes from human beings. However, roboticists and AI, they make use of inspiration not only from humans, but also from other animals and other creatures we see on this planet. So as an example, scientists have tried to emulate how human brains work, and they have created algorithmic neural networks in which you have some inputs and they're mixed together through various layers, and those are processed to eventually activate certain outputs. These are the kinds of things, for instance, that modern AI uses for creating perception systems to be able to classify, if given an image, for example, containing a digit 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. If it is given to a neural network, it can easily make use of these neural networks to look for particular features. And through it, if it is able to find those features, it would know that this digit is a 1, this digit is a 7, this digit looks like a 8, so I would classify it as an 8. The inspiration here is from human brain, and therefore this kind of an algorithm is known as a neural network. We also find that these robots, they are built in the forms of various animals. As an example, this is a robot created by Boston Dynamics, which emulates the behavior of a dog. So this is a quadruped. It has 4 legs, and it is designed to do amazing things. You can just go on YouTube to see the kinds of things Spot can do, the kinds of things this robot, Asimo of Honda, can do. And there are various other inspirations from nature as well. As an example, this is a snake bot. It has sensors, it has actuators, and it can go into small niches, small corners where other larger creatures or robots or human beings cannot go. This robot can wiggle its way inside, and it also has a camera through which it can get images. And in this way, this robot has also been used in a disaster response scenario, and it also won an award for work on disaster response. This was work done by a research team from Carnegie Mellon University. So various advances have been made, but you see that a big inspiration for people working on artificial intelligence is the human brain and the behavior that we see in human beings as well as the other animals. If we talk of AI, then a particular perception is created by people who make movies. So for instance, this is a snapshot from the famous movie Star Wars, which was a big brand. It exposed these ideas of AI and robots to many people. It is relatively old. So this was made in the 1970s and 80s, and various other versions have been created. These are 2 robots that were there in this film. And one of the robot is an anthropomorphic robot. It looks like a human being. The other robot looks like an android. It has certain features we associate with human beings, such as arms and legs. However, it is not exactly anthropomorphic, just like this robot is. So a typical ingredient of movies when they display AI is that they show these machines that are very clever, that look like human beings, and they sometimes are human friendly, but in many cases they have these amazing powers and they are made to fight, and sometimes they get out of control. And you have movies like Terminators and other such many other. This is a common fantasy that is explored in movies, that a robot or an artificial intelligence is created, but it gets out of hand, like Frankenstein. You create something and you're not able to control it. So this is a common theme in movies. In the news, we find that the news, they typically are presenting a doomsday scenario, that you have AI, but we face a very big risk from it. We face an existential risk. Our civilization may be wiped out because of AI if we create a super intelligence. A super intelligence is supposed to be an AI which is so intelligent that it is able to also improve itself, and it surpasses the capabilities of human beings, and therefore it becomes the uh, alpha species on our planet. It becomes like we become like slaves to these AI. So such concerns have been raised by many people, including Elon Musk, Stephen Hawking, and many other people. Um, and you see all sorts of news in which people are like debating each other if they really understand the dangers of AI. We see news that relate to sociopathic robots that are antisocial, that can be used in warfare. And these are all concerns that people have. And we also see news like in Saudi Arabia, a lifelike robot was granted citizenship. So this opens up various ethical issues. Can we consider a robot to be a person? Can the robot be given a citizenship? Does the robot have any agency? Are they morally responsible? This robot is usually just used for marketing purposes. It goes on to various conferences and it represents the country. But at the same time, such robots are being used even for companionship. Some people, especially in countries where you have a very large population of older people who do not have companions, certain animal clones are created, such as a toy dog which appears and works and hears and interacts just like a dog. However, it does not give you the problems of that dogs give you. So it is created as you would consider this as a home robot. So these are some of the things we find um, in the news. So if we think of real life AI, the kinds of things that the researchers in the field they think about, and this is going to be more aligned with the technology that we currently have. Currently, we do not have a technology that is approaching anything close to super intelligence. In fact, up till a few years ago, people were surprised if AI would work at all. However, now AI gives performance better than human beings in very narrow tasks. So for certain image classification problem, these AI algorithms may be better than human. They may give a better accuracy. However, they're also very vulnerable. If an adversary wants to compromise these models, they can create examples which will just completely fool these AI algorithms. So let me show you some real examples of AI that is used in practical life. All of you would be using it in some way. For instance, you may make use of Google Translate. I have translated this English language sentence. Hey class, hope you are enjoying this lecture on artificial intelligence in this course. And it gives a fairly decent translation. It says, مرحبا أيها الفصل. أتمنى أن تستمتع بهذه المحاضرة عن الذكاء الاصطناعي في هذه الدورة. And while I do not speak Arabic very well, I think this is a fairly decent translation which can be improved upon. So this allows us, the important thing to remember is that this translation is done just algorithmically. Algorithms have been trained on large amounts of data to construct mathematical models, probabilistic models, through which this translation happens in real time. And various online services are available in which you speak one language in real time and it is translated into another language at the same time. So this is a really impressive feat of modern AI. We also find AI being used by all tech companies, including Google, Amazon, Facebook. They make use of this for searching for content. They make use of it for providing you customized, context-aware, personalized recommendations. If you see this, we have this mic sign here, which indicates that you can speak into this and it would be able to recognize what you say. This is again AI in action. It is able to recognize your speech. This is another example. You can locate yourself on a map and you can specify where you want to go and it will find you a path to that destination. This is computation that everyone uses. This makes use of AI. We make use of AI to also find and look for faces in an image. As an example, AI is used to detect these faces automatically. And various other image processing and vision-based algorithms exist for face detection, object recognition, object tracking. All of this, these are currently available features in modern AI. We also have simple robots. We saw earlier a humanoid robot. This is a very simple robot, which is very practical. It is a vacuum cleaning robot that people can buy from the market at fairly cheap rates. And this would just try to do its job. It does not have very high levels of intelligence. For instance, it does not need to understand language. It is equipped with very basic sensors. It is able to detect if it is hitting a wall or if it comes across some object. It would then backtrack and find its way. And when run over a sufficient amount of time, it would clean up the entire floor. And it is then programmed to go back to where the house or the home location is, and it would also charge itself there. So this is an instance of a practical low intelligence robot that is serving a practical need. This is a more impressive example of a robot that is displaying the motor skills that we typically associate with human beings. If you look for this URL, you will find this robot jumping around and even doing a somersault at the end. So that's very impressive for a robot. But at the same time, these skills are very hard for the robot. And it is only in the recent times that we have been able to do all of this. So let us see how this robot moves. So this is indeed a very impressive show, almost like real human gymnasts. And being able to do things like this, it allows great advancement in how robotics is done. Let's move ahead, and we have finished the first part. I will now um, conclude the first part, and I will join you again in a little while where we'll continue our discussion about the early history of AI and how initially we worked on knowledge-based systems, and eventually thereafter we will talk about modern AI systems. So till then, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah.